Good evening to all of you. Good evening, Nikhil, for accepting our invitation to be on webinar and addressing our students on a very important topic on the civil services. And I'm sure you are a good achiever and you have already started achieving things in the society. As you know that RV is encouraging all such a holistic development in students, and IDEA Industry Engineering Association is one such body who empowers the students not only in the technical education but also involves in the overall holistic development of the students. So we typically conduct a lot of activities like industrial visits, then expert lectures, then conducting group discussions, interviews, written tests, and helping them for placement activities, and conduct an important festival called Synergy, which we have been doing for a long time. And also these junior students will be helping the final year students in their project seminars conduction, and participate in the entrepreneurship activities of the college, participating in all the cultural and extracurricular activities in the college. So I think you know about all these things, and a lot of developments after your left also has happened in the institution, and there is now focus more on the latest technologies for the students, as you know, and also the holistic development and building value system, which is the core of RV College of Engineering. I think we are trying to inculcate more among the students because the present generation of students are highly, I can say, tech savvy, self-motivated, at the same time self-centered, particularly in the urban, the semi-urban areas. The rural students have seen a lot of difficulties already in life. I think they know what is the meaning of the teamwork, societal concerns, and things of that sort. But I request you to focus as a civil servant how all these other things will be helpful to the students apart from whatever they think they are good at. So I think that's what I expect from as an outcome of this particular lecture and the webinar series. Thank Archana, the IDEA faculty coordinator, for giving all the students an opportunity to learn. And I hope all the students are doing well, because I'm sure you're all busy with the tests and the quizzes. And stay safe and stay home. And I request Professor C.K. Nagendra Gupta to introduce our very proud alumni of RV College of Engineering. And I'm sure he will do. And Nikhil, thank you very much once again for accepting. And I hope when all these things set right, I also request you to come to the college once, I think at your suitable time. We'll invite you, and you can address all our students who are interested in taking civil service as a profession. Thank you very much.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಶ್ರೀಯುತ ನಿಖಿಲ್ ಅವರೇ, respected principal sir, faculty members, colleagues, and my dear students, I am delighted to introduce a great achiever of RVCE, Sri Nikhil Dhanraj Nipanikar. His schooling was from St. Paul's High School, Belgaum. After that, Nikhil joined diploma in mechanical engineering from Government Polytechnic, Belgaum, and then he passed with flying colors, first rank in CET, and then got admission to RVCE for the mechanical engineering batch, and he graduated in the year 2016, and he secured third rank here also. Later, for a short while, he interned at Cisco for 6 months before starting off his preparations for UPSC. Cleared UPSC examinations in flying colors in his first attempt with 563rd rank in 2018. Then completed his training and is now appointed as Assistant Collector in Begusarai district of Bihar. I am very delighted to introduce our guest of the today's guest to all of you. Thank you so much. I wish IDEA best of luck and congratulate IDEA and others for joining this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for introducing our guest today on this show and also for giving us motivation to pursue our dreams and career. Whoever wishes, whoever is an aspirant of being an IAS, you have motivated them with your talk. Thank you so much. I'm very sure that all of us here on this webinar are very excited to hear from you, Nikhil. Again, thank you for hopping on our webinar and accepting our invitation to join us. So let's begin our webinar. So to start with, Nikhil, I'm sure all of us want to know what is that small seed of thought in your mind that helped you decide or to realize that civil services was the right choice for you. Can you tell us a bit about your journey from, your childhood to now, which, whatever has inspired you to choose this path as your right career? Please tell us a little about that.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Myself, Nikhil. I'm currently posted as Assistant Collector and Assistant District Magistrate in Begusarai, Bihar. Firstly, it's a privilege for me as an alumni of RV College, to be participating and interacting with you guys. An idea has made this possible through your platform and by bringing everyone on board. I thank Principal Sir for his kind words, and Sir was there as principal when I passed out of the college. And it's always a privilege to see what has happened in the college since we've left, and things are improving. And I have seen that students from RV College are doing great wherever they are. For me, UPSC or civil services was a passion. For this, I would like to thank Sir, Principal Sir, because in 2014, there was one IPS from Karnataka Kada who was invited to our college for one such talk, like I'm addressing all of you now. That interaction in the IEM auditorium made a very huge impact on me. That's when I started taking UPSC as a challenge in life. To me, per se, civil services was something which I always dreamt of, but I never knew how to do it. Because when I was only 10 years old, I lost my father. And after that, it was really tough for me personally, because with a lot of things that you don't have financial backing, you don't have a lot of property to your name, you basically don't know what to do with life. And at that tender age of like 10 years, you are really directionless in life. And to add to all that, I was not very smart with my studies, and academically I was also very poor. But then I decided that I'll have to change things on my own. And that's when I started studying more. I started working a little more hard, so that even if I'm not smart, even if I'm not academically good, I can make it up with my hard work. So that's how my schooling got over. And after my schooling got over, many people asked me, why not 12th, and why not science stream, and why did you choose diploma? One reason was, since I lost my father, it was very important for me to have something in my hand that would give me an employment opportunity. And I felt diploma in mechanical engineering was that. But when I joined diploma, I realized that this is something I always wanted to do. This is something I want to learn, and that's how I continued my mechanical engineering in diploma. Then after that, CET happened. I got rank 1 and I joined RV. After joining RV, I experienced huge difference in my life, because there are 2 3 things that RV gives you. Firstly, most of us who are in RV are from usually tier 1 or tier 2 cities. We come from an environment which is closed, not much exposed. Once we come to Bangalore, once we come to RV college, you see a lot many things which you would have not seen otherwise being in some other college of Karnataka or maybe elsewhere in India. RV college gave me a lot of confidence, because it showed me that if I can compete here in this college, if I can prove myself academically or otherwise in whatever I'm doing, I will be able to do much better at the national level. And for any competitive exams, these are the things that are important. You need to have a lot of confidence. And RV College gave me that platform through which I could, compete with everyone. You go through the college, you'll find students from all over India. So it is basically a sample of all over the country, which is there in RV College. If you can compete there, national competitions are pretty easy for us then. Then what happened to me in RV College was one such seminar which happened in 2014. That's when I started taking civil services a little seriously. But to be honest, I never studied it from a career perspective. I always read the newspaper, and newspaper to me was a sports page. It was nothing more than that. But then I got placed with Cisco. I interned with Cisco for 6 months, and I was offered the full-time job with Cisco. But that's when I realized that whether I had to, stick with a corporate career or move to civil services. To me, the initial thing was I will start with Cisco, work for 2 years, and then take a break and come to pursue my dream in civil services. But then that frame of mind was very different. That was a time where I was little indecisive with what I wanted to do. But then I decided, no, always that the thing was there that I wanted to be in civil servant, I wanted to be an IAS officer. So let me give up everything and let me go to Delhi. I'll tell you, going to Delhi was one such opportunity I seized. And with this came a lot of trouble because I was jumping into something I never knew about. Because though civil services was a career or a passion, I never, went in deep to understand what it actually meant. Today, most of y'all are interacting here. Y'all should, consider taking a lot of outcome of this because most of the times we decide things in career without analyzing where we are going. So having the knowledge of such things is very important. Then when I went to Delhi, things changed because there in Delhi you'll see a lot of competition. You'll see people from all over India who are hungry to be an IAS officer. That competition which we'll see there is very different. And coming from RV, I knew that I can compete with these guys, and all that I needed to do was hard work. So which each and every day I, made my plan that this is the topic I'm going to cover, this is that I'm going to study. And UPSC is one such thing which is very dynamic. There is nothing that someone can tell you, you read this book, that question will appear, which happens most of the times with our college curriculum. But with UPSC, things are very dynamic and you tend to lose sight very soon because the motivation that is required for UPSC is for some different level. To tell all of you, I left Karnataka in 2016. I only came back to Karnataka after clearing UPSC. For 2 years, I was stuck up in Delhi in such horrible weather conditions. For me, because I was from Karnataka, lived in Bangalore. Food was very difficult for me there. And apart from that, UPSC 2 itself was a huge mountain, which I don't even know that how would I have done that had I not got the little guidance that I had from my seniors, who happened to be from RV College as well. So this was basically the viewpoint behind me being in civil servant or approaching this as a career. Now that I'm here, this field is really diverse and it gives me huge opportunity to perform, to showcase my skills and potential, and not to forget that there's huge responsibility that comes with the position of being an IAS officer. So that has been my career path towards civil services.
That's awesome, Nikhil. It's really amazing to hear about how you crossed the hurdles in your life to come to where you are today. It's really amazing that you were once in our place and you know used that opportunity of being in RVCE to get where you are today. So moving on with our questions, the next thing that we would love to know is when exactly did you start preparing for UPSC? How was your preparation? How did you plan out your preparation, your study, and all of that?
Like I told you, when I was interning with Cisco, I had this thought that I should, immediately give civil services. But that's when I did a lot of research on the internet about what the syllabus is, what the subjects are, and how do I go about it. Uh, what happened to me, that decision was when I was offered this full-time offer with Cisco, I had to decide because had I taken that offer, I had to stay there for at least 2 to 3 years. And I don't know, had I taken that offer, I would have never done UPSC and I would have been there itself. And it's a very good opportunity to work at Cisco also. But my passion was civil services. So that's when I decided that I need to quit this job and go to Delhi. After this Delhi thing, what happened was I firstly went through the toppers' interviews, what other people had to say about the exam, and how it has to be approached. UPSC civil service is something, like I told you, very dynamic. You cannot have a point plan. Your plan has to evolve according to the situation. Like currently, you see there's COVID pandemic going on. A lot of district administration is involved. So, what are the skills that are required? You need to have great management skills. You need to understand things from a general perspective. You need to take things into consideration. Firstly, this is how you need to approach even for preparation of civil services, because when you're reading a topic, what I have seen is most of the times people tend to get very much attached with a subject. Like, say they're reading a subject topic from geography, they will read about it until they get mastery over that subject. But that is not how UPSC wants you to be. Let me clear it to everyone. If you want to be an IS officer, you have to think from all dimensions that are possible. You cannot be hardcore thinking about one line of thought. You need to have a very wide perspective. You need to think in different directions because any decision that you're going to take today will impact a number of lives in future. Like you see with the COVID pandemic, all the decisions that have been taken by the Ministry of Home Affairs and the Honorable Prime Minister himself have been taken by considering a lot many factors. And similarly with UPSC preparation, you all need to develop a holistic approach. You all need to read the newspaper daily so that you all are updated with the current trend. And when it comes to the syllabus of the UPSC, you all need to break down each and every topic into smaller bits. Make a timetable for yourself. That's what I did. Dedicate each day to a particular topic, read that topic, and see how well you're able to answer those questions when asked. Because that is what is important. In UPSC, you'll have to write 9 papers over a span of 5 days. And I think this is the most toughest part. Cumulatively, I might have written some 40,000 words in 9 days. That is a lot when it comes to hard work. Because in college exams, most of us, it is semester wise. So what we do is already the portion syllabus is small, so we can manage it. But when it comes to UPSC, it's huge, and you don't know what is going to be asked. And add to that, there are people who are studying for this exam for 4 and 5 years. So your competition is not only yourself, but it is the people who are studying, who are there in Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai, and Hyderabad for 4 to 5 years and know this system much better. But there's an advantage when you'll go into this service or go into this exam as a newbie. What happens is you do not have a lot of preconceived notions. Many people will be pessimistic when they don't clear this exam in 1 or 2 attempts. They might think, no, this is not the right thing that I did. But y'all, as a newbie, will have a positive approach. Y'all will never try to go in a negative direction. That is what happened with me. And that is why I was able to clear this in the first attempt. Because had I listened to a lot many people, I would have corrupted my mind. I would have not known where to go. And the simple thing is hard work. UPSC, that is what UPSC wants from you all. It wants a person who is very consistent with what he does. He needs to be hardworking, and then the confidence has to be there. Because when you face the panel in the interviews for the civil services, these people who are sitting in front of you have a cumulative age experience of 350 years plus. Each one of them is like around 75, 80 years, and they have seen everything in and out. They will only try to assess you on 3, 4 factors. That is your confidence, your ability to understand things in a holistic manner, your ability to take everyone on board when you take decisions, and your ability to analyze the decisions and their impacts in future. And this is what you will have to approach UPSC civil services and each and every topic of the syllabus.
That was a very exhaustive method you have suggested us to follow. I hope all the IAS aspirants here have taken note. So, as you said a while back that you weren't really good at studies, you were a little weak. So, how do you think students should evaluate themselves whether civil services is right for them, especially those that could be weak in studies or maybe just don't know what to do about it, are just interested? What do you say about that?
What happens is most of the times when we talk to someone about civil services, they always tell, if you want to be an IAS officer, you have to be smart, you have to be the topper, you have to be some genius who will solve random questions asked to you in like 10 seconds. That was the things that was told to me. And I'm glad that I didn't believe those things, because had I believed those things, I wouldn't have been here talking to you guys. What happens most of the times, people do not understand what this exam is about. Most of the time, people do not even try this exam and they will give you an opinion. And UPSC never even once mentions in their entire notification that they bring out for the civil services that they are looking for candidates which are smart, who are very good in academics. What is the minimum criteria that UPSC wants is you to be a graduate. That's all. And rest is up to your hard work. Now, how do students have to assess themselves? What I did was, firstly, you'll have to ask yourself 3, 4 questions. First and very important question is: are you all financially stable at home and you independently? Because when you jump into UPSC civil services, this is easily going to take you anywhere from 2 years to 8 years of your life, or sometimes even a lifetime. That is when you all need to have a good financial backing. That okay, if I decide to study for the next 1 year, who is going to support me? There can also be a case where students want to work and pursue UPSC at the same time. There are batchmates of mine who have done this either way. So being at home, studying or joining a coaching is up to y'all. And financial considerations are must. You all must always take on this financial thing into consideration. The second most important thing is whether you all can give 2 to 3 years by being at one place in a room. When I joined Delhi, y'all can imagine it was very tough for me. It was tough for me because I was locked in one room for 2 years, not having friends to talk to, not having been able to go back home to my family during festivals, and seeing the entire world enjoying and you studying there with your books. But always the thought of uh, being an IS officer from kept me going. And each and every day I told myself that just one day and I'm closer to my dream of being an IS officer. The third most important thing is whether y'all are able to comprehend and analyze things in a very holistic perspective. What happens most of the times, most of us are tech savvy. Like our principal sir mentioned that most of us are into technology, our minds keep working. That is, if y'all feel that no, I can be a better IT guy, or I can be into corporate and do good, y'all must go ahead with that career. But with UPSC civil services, it requires hardcore consistency. There is not one day in my life when I was preparing for UPSC, I did not wake up at 4:30. My schedule was I used to wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and right up to 11 o'clock in the night, I used to keep studying. I never, attended social functions. I never went out with my friends. Not that my friends knew where I was, uh, but it was also very difficult for me mentally. And very important thing when it comes to UPSC, and each and every candidate should analyze this, is whether you are mentally tough to handle. Because what happens, I'll tell you, UPSC is usually written by lakhs of people. When I wrote the exam, there were about 8 to 9 lakh people who wrote the preliminary exam. Around 13,000 were called for the mains exam. And out of that, 3,000 were called for interviews, and around 180 become IAS. So you can imagine the competition. And add to this, there are people who are preparing for 4 to 5 years. There are people who are, already from a family who have bureaucrats. So what happens? They have an added advantage. They know how to study. They know what to do. So they have a starter's benefit. So that is when you will have to ask yourself whether you're mentally tough to sustain the challenge that is going to come your way, and keep going the same way, not listen to people. So smartness is not a criteria. Even if you feel you're weak in academics, please do not worry about that, because UPSC has never mentioned it in their notification. All that you need to ask yourself is whether you're financially stable, whether you're hardworking, whether you're mentally strong to handle what's going to come your way, and whether you're going to give your time for the next 2 to 6 years for this exam. That is a prerequisite for UPSC, I feel.
Thank you, Nikhil, for clearing that out for us. I'm sure many of us thought we all, have to be geniuses to even dream of being an IAS. So, do you think a couple of years of preparation is sufficient to aspire or to attempt the exam for, especially for students that don't have any prior knowledge on the subjects? What do you think are the prerequisites for clearing the examination?
Okay. Uh, to be very honest, I never started preparing for civil services until I quit Cisco. Until I quit Cisco and went to Delhi, I never even touched one standard book that was there for UPSC civil services. Nor did I read newspaper from the point of view of an exam. I always read it for fun. I always read it because I liked something, and not from the viewpoint of exam. So, according to me, you require good 1.5 to 2 years of dedicated studies for around say 8 to 12 hours of dedicated studies in your environment, in your study environment, and do it continuously for the next 1.5 year, and that should be sufficient. And it is not necessary that you need to study for like 6 years, 7 years, or right from a college. There are a lot many things you'll need to build up in yourself. Like principal sir mentioned that RB College is doing a lot into value building. That is what civil servants must essentially have. You all can be a good administrator only when you all are morally strong and you all have good value systems. When you're in college, you have this opportunity because you don't have a lot of stress on yourselves except for exams and assignments that you'll do. You all don't have to deal with a lot of people. You all are to yourselves. Use this time to make use of all the opportunities that you'll be getting in your college academics and otherwise also. College has a lot of fairs. They have a lot of events that keep coming, so you all need to participate in that. What happens is you all get exposure of new things. You all build up your confidence. You all pick up a new value system. You all pick up a new thinking line of thinking that will eventually help with your civil services dream. And apart from that, once you all are out of college, and I also suggest you all should enjoy your college life, because when you look back after you come to a position in life, you look back and then you see what you have done. You don't want to be a nerd who was always in his books studying day in, day out. You all need to enjoy life, but enjoy life in a responsible way. Do not have any bad habits like smoking, drinking. What happens is that might, be cool for you all when you're in college. It might make you look cool, but actually in the long run, that is the most dangerous thing that you all are doing, because your health will be spoiled and your cognitive abilities will be decreasing with each and every habit that you do. So try to avoid that. And after your college or in your final year, I think with the project you all will get a lot of time. That's when you'll need to pick up UPSC books and start studying for it. And 1.5 2 years of dedicated preparation daily in like spending around 8 to 10 hours will be sufficient for you all to crack UPSC. And one word of advice is, do not take opinion from each and every person who has just tried this exam or into the service, because each of you will be different. Each of you all will have different cognitive abilities and ability to understand and comprehend things. So use your abilities, trust your strengths, and use your weaknesses, to develop over them. And 1.5 year, 2 years, and you all will be able to crack it in the first attempt, like I did.
Completely agreeing with you, Nikhil. Me myself, as a student of RBC, totally understand the importance of being a part of all these clubs, being a part of all these events that are conducted in college, and not just stick to books. It totally adds up value further when you get into the real world, outside into the industry. It does totally add up. So, what do you think should be the best strategy for these aspirants, especially for the ones, I mean, all of us are RBC students here. Considering the busy schedule that we have, what do you think is the right strategy that we should attempt, considering we start preparing today?
So assuming most of y'all here are from first, second year, and third year also, and some I guess are from final year. Final year students need to be a bit more serious when it comes to civil services, because now you're out of college almost, and then you'll have to appear the exam. For first year and second year students, I would sincerely suggest, do not start anything with UPSC right now. Try to build up a a portfolio, or try to build up value systems, or try to pick up new things, and try to learn as much as you all can, because UPSC will happen. It will, if you're wanting to be an IS officer, you'll eventually end up becoming one. But what you'll need to do is, you'll need to be a strong administrator, and these are the things you will start from first year in college. And I do not advise first year and second year students to take right away, bring up some UPSC books and start studying. Instead of that, try to focus on your academics in college and do as many as extracurricular activities that is possible, because that is going to help you in long run. And you all will realize this when you all will be in front of the chairman of the UPSC interview panel, because that is when you all cannot fake of being someone else. You all cannot fake to have an personality. You all cannot fake to be a person who you are not. You will be your real self, and that real self is from first year to second year, which you will be building. Third year students can buy up some NCRT books from 6th to 12th, though it might seem very simple, and though it might seem very outrageous for someone in graduation to go back to school books. But believe me, this is the most important thing that each and every UPSC aspirant or an IAS officer does. Go back to your 6th to 12th NCRT books, read them over and over again, try to make small notes, and try to revise those notes. For final year students, you all need to be a little more cautious. You all need to spend your time reading more into your optionals, like say whatever optionals you all tend to decide, and try to read and think from the exam perspective, because other students can have the benefit of time. They have at least 2 to 3 years until the right exam, but final year students will be writing the exam in that immediate year or the next year after that. So you all need to select your optionals first. After your optionals, you'll need to divide your schedule into slots of say 3 hours, 4 hours. And the most important habit that each one of you all can pick up is reading newspaper, but from an academic point of view. Yeah, so that's it when it comes to preparation.
Thank you, Nikhil, for those tips and suggestions, especially pertaining to each year of study that we are currently in. So, could you compare coaching versus self study? We see a lot of institutions starting up each year, and it's really hard to choose one among all of them. So, what do you think is the right way to move forward? Should we choose a coaching institution and prepare there, or just stick to self study? What do you think is the right way?
The ideal thing to do is self-study. But what coaching gives you is it gives you a guidance, because most of us are unaware of what UPSC is and what it is asked. What does the exam want from you? So what does coaching do here is coaching gives you a guidance. It shows you a path, what to do, what not to do. But yeah, but coachings most of the time, tend to be a little more commercial. They are not actually seeking your benefit. They are not actually trying to get into the services, but they're trying to make money. I was exploited by one such business model in Delhi. After going to Delhi, I realized that it is all to do with your self study. If you are able to give good 8 to 10 hours for yourself within your books and researching over the internet, that should be sufficient. But in spite of telling so many times, I have seen most of the candidates or aspirants tend to flock to Delhi or Hyderabad for UPSC coaching. Eventually, everyone will realize that coaching is a myth. No one can actually teach you to be an IS officer. You yourself can build up that potential. You all can never go to a coaching and call yourselves an IS officer. Because when I went to Delhi, y'all cannot believe in my class there were 500 people. Now imagine focusing in a class with 500 people where you have to see the lecturer or the teacher on the screen. You are so far back that you'll not be able to glance on what is happening on the board. Everything happens on a television for you. And add to that, there are 25 batches of the same. There are lakhs of aspirants. Sometimes this is good because what it does is it shows you the real competition. But sometimes people who are not mentally strong tend to crumble under the pressure. What happens is y'all will not be able to soak up the pressure and y'all will give up. Y'all will seek for distractions in Delhi. Y'all will start going out to Connaught Place. Y'all will start going out by using the Delhi metro to XYZ places. And that's when y'all lose track. Y'all will lose attempts. Then y'all come to Bangalore. Then y'all realize that whatever I had done in Delhi was not useful to me. And I could have done much better had I been in a room using internet and using my books as my primary resource. And still, in spite of this, if people want to go to Delhi, they can go and they can experience. But I would suggest against coaching, you all can be at home and prepare for UPSC.
Totally agreed upon that, Nikhil, because I totally understand so many institutions, and most of them are just there to make money, right? So, what do you think are the major challenges that one would have to face during the journey of clearing the exam? How do you think one should overcome them?
The first major thing with UPSC is the syllabus. The syllabus of the UPSC is humongous. There are 4 GS papers which have a number of subtopics. Then there are your optional papers, and then there is a language paper. Not to forget the UPSC prelims, which is the most dreaded part of this exam, because at a point at one paper you all will eliminate around 99% of the people who are writing this exam. Lakhs of people will write, and then few thousands will be chosen to write mains. So what happens is with UPSC, the main challenge is the exam and the syllabus. You all firstly need to analyze your potentials. You all need to select your optionals very carefully, and after selection of your optionals, you all need to divide your syllabus into a number of small segments and keep working on that. That could be a detailed discussion sometime else if aspirants are willing to do UPSC and someone who's planning to do it in your future. Apart from that, if you all decide to move to Delhi, one is the weather. Weather is not as pleasant as Bangalore. When every time in Delhi, I wished I was in Bangalore studying there due to the weather. And with this comes the challenges of food. Food and other necessities in Delhi is very tough to manage, and it is little financially draining. When someone goes to Delhi, you'll have to spend around 3.5 to around 5 lakhs easily. That is not sustainable for everyone. Then with UPSC, as each and every stage progress and as you mature into the preparation, you all will realize the challenges are very different. First, when you'll start, you all will realize the syllabus is huge. Then when you'll start doing it, you all will realize that that is the UPSC prelim is the huge thing that is in front of you. That is the next challenge. Once you're done and once you're confident with that, you all will realize the biggest challenge is writing a mains paper, because the questions that they will ask you is you might have not read it anywhere, you couldn't have predicted it anywhere, or you all couldn't have prepared yourself in a way to attend those questions. So you all will have to write 40,000 words, 9 papers over the span of around 5 days. So you all need to build up an habit of writing. If you all are in college, what I used to do when I was in college was during a semester end exams, I used to write everything that was in the syllabus, in prescribed syllabus. I used to solve a number of problems. What this did was it gave me a good writing practice, and in the exam I was pretty confident with what I was writing. I didn't have to think twice because I was confident because I had practiced a lot. So UPSC requires huge practice with writing. Then the most important phase which determines if you'll be an IS officer is the interview. Interview will have different sets of challenges. You will have something called as a detailed application form, which will be filled by you when you're writing your mains. And the UPSC panel will interview based on certain parameters, which they will not disclose. But all that is important is your confidence, how well you can face the board. So with UPSC, there is not one set of challenges that I can predict. Each one of you all will have your own challenges. Some of you all will be smart in maths. Some of you will be very good with aptitude. So the paper 2, which is in the UPSC prelim, will be a little easier for you. Some people not will not be very smart with aptitude and general comprehension. They might struggle. Challenges will be different for different people, but the general challenges tend to remain along the syllabus and how do you cover the portion. And the most important thing is writing the UPSC mains, because you will need to have tremendous writing practice.
Sure, Nikhil. Writing does, play a big role, whatever it is. Maybe even in the future, if you have to write a mail or something, knowing the flow of wordings that should come out, knowing how to talk, communication, everything. I think writing, along with helping you, memorize and remember stuff, it also helps you build up on your communication skills. So because you mentioned writing, I had read a blog where you had written about your journey to IAS. So I read about how you had used the help of a website called IAS Network Team. So can you tell us a little about that? How did it help you build up your writing skills, and how it helped you tackle essay writing mainly?
What happens with UPSC is you all need to write a lot. So the answers that are required, general understanding and ability to put those points into a structured format. I used to struggle with writing mainly because I was very good at maths, and with engineering, with mechanical engineering, you had to solve a lot many problems. So when it came to numericals, I was very good. I used to do those things. But when it came to writing in paragraphs or writing what is required, I used to struggle mainly with SL, because we don't write a lot many essays when we come across our graduation in engineering. So with me, that was a difficulty. I tried a lot many coachings, but none would help. But I would still struggle writing my own essays. I would still struggle try to evaluating my own essays, but it was very difficult for me. That is when one thing happened is when I was surfing on the internet, this IAS network thing came across, and I decided to just send a few essays to them, not realizing that they will reply, but they eventually replied to me, and then they gave me a few tips of what the UPSC essentially wants from it, because these are the people who have tried the exam for 6 attempts or maybe more. They were not able to get through. Now they are guiding and they are doing a good role, and websites like these are free to use. There is you don't have to pay a single penny for this, and you all can make use of free resources to develop your talent, to develop your answer writing skills, to understand the exam in a better way. Because if you all decide to go to Delhi, institute like Vajiram and Ravi will charge you 1.75 lakh, and not to forget the rent that you'll be paying in Delhi and other things. So if you're in college, try to make use of the websites that are available for free, like Insights on India. There is Vision IAS, there is IAS Network. These will give you a lot many free things that you would not get otherwise, provided that you all are ready to work hard and use those resources in a wise manner.
Absolutely, Nikhil. Especially today when the COVID situation is prevalent, many websites similar to this have started out free resources, free courses, and all of that. We should totally make use of all these free resources that we have available on the internet, and also like building a community around IAS aspirants. They surely will hold you up when you are also in their place. I totally agree on that. So to think back on when you were in RBC, what were your global electives? I mean, what were your electives or optional subjects? Can you give a few suggestions to us students generally on, what should we focus on, scoring or, choosing the right subjects? What could be the right subjects for us to choose?
When it comes to choosing electives in your college, you all need to think with your own career perspective what you'll want to do in future. Suppose you want to get into a corporate field, or you want to get into innovation, you want to get into R&D, then the subjects will be different. For me, I don't exactly remember what electives I chose, but one was from IEM department, that is project management. And apart from project management, there was one from civil engineering department of solid waste management. I don't have exact memory of what subjects I had chosen, but generally my subjects used to revolve around, like solid waste management, which I would use as an administrator, or project management, which would, enhance my managing abilities, or which would give me an insight into how a project is made. Because you see, government of India and any government in the country works on a very scientific principle, at least these days, with a lot many bureaucrats coming from science backgrounds. We tend to use a number of things that were taught to us in college. Like in project management, we have PERT and CPM. PERT CPM is something that we use on regular basis, even with district administration. With the COVID crisis that we're currently seeing, a number of logistic issues are popping up. What are we using? We are using PERT and CPM here. We are using other methods of project evaluation techniques, so that when you're choosing your electives, if you're going to give a try to UPSC civil services, choose electives which will eventually add to your profile when you are appearing for this exam, or which will give you some idea about what you're going to do in the future. That would be the best path to choose your electives. My electives were like project management, solid waste management, and some other which I don't exactly recall. uh, Refrigeration and something to do with mechanical engineering, I guess.
That was an awesome suggestion, Nikhil. Even I agree on this. We all think that we just, take subjects to just score around. But to be honest, all of these subjects, when you're in college, it is the right time to build up on the basics or the theory, because you don't have time to study all of it again once you are in the industry. So it is very essential that you choose the right subjects back in college, and that you try to build your basics in college. So moving on to the next question that we have, you see, we have a dearth of options and exams and resources here and there. So it's really hard to understand the differences. What do you think? I mean, how are state civil service examinations and UPSC CSE different in terms of competition and preparation required? Is the state civil service exam a good option for students who might not have confidence to excel in UPSC? What could be the difference there?
See, what tends to happen is most of the time we tend to underestimate our own ability, and we try to look for an more comforting options. So for an aspirant, that comforting option would be, state civil services, because he would tell himself that, look, I'm not able to, compete at national level, but at state level, I'll certainly do good. But this is not the right approach, I feel. What happens is most of the state exams or the state PCS exams are written by people who have already tried their hand at UPSC. What everyone does is they try for the civil services, and if that they're not able to clear UPSC, they go on to state civil services. Not that state civil services are not good, they are also very respectable positions. They also give you a huge variety of options and diversity in your career. But what UPSC offers to you, the charm is very different. Being in position of an IAS officer and serving as assistant collector and district magistrate, I can realize that I would have never got an opportunity had I been in the state services that then IAS would give you. IAS gives you an all India presence. It is a profession that you can use, to excel in very different fields. You go on from being the sub-divisional magistrate, you go on to being the district collector. And district collector is the ex-cadre post. Ex-cadre post is a post which is reserved only for IAS officers. You cannot be an collector or a district magistrate if you are not an IAS officer. So when you all decide to go for state services, you all have to be very sure that you will never be an collector in the district where you all are serving. At most, you all could be an additional collector, but not the collector himself. So that is what happens with the state services. Most of the state services are also irregular. Not to forget that they tend to have the prelim exam in 1 year, and after 4 to 5 years, they decide they will have the mains exam and the UPS, and the exam results are also a little more contested with bribery issues and corruption scandals. And not to forget that there are a lot many petitions against the state exams. And I'm not telling that they are not transparent per se, but they are not as clear as UPSC, because UPSC is a very fair and transparent system. Here, there is no question of corruption at all. It is a very transparent system which selects candidate based purely on their merits, and hence it gives you an opportunity. Because with UPSC, you tend to realize a lot many things. You all can read a lot. You all can educate yourself. You all can grow as a human. But with state services, you all tend to limit your abilities within that state itself. Like supposing someone is writing for Madhya Pradesh Civil Services or Karnataka Civil Services, you all will tend to focus on that state itself. Hence, you all will not develop an understanding which is very broad. When you all come into IAS, the understanding, the training that we undergo, the kind of contacts, the kind of network that we build is tremendous. And I sincerely tell all of you students from RV College that most of you all have very good comprehension ability. You all are smart. You all are confident in your own skin. You all are confident when it comes to academics also. You all need to take on the bigger challenges. Yes, when you all feel okay, I've tried for UPSC 3-4 attempts and not able to do it, that's when you'll go back to the state services. But do not try to sail in two boats, because that is not going to lead you all anywhere. Try for UPSC. If that does not happen, you can always go back to the state services, but UPSC should be the priority, I feel.
Okay, Nikhil, now that we know the differences in the roles and the options that we have, in IAS and state level and, all India level, could we know a little about how exactly is the difference in the exam, the preparation needed, and all of that?
What happens with UPSC? Usually, UPSC is very dynamic. They tend to ask questions from left, right, and center. You do not know where the question is going to come up from. So the reading also is huge. With UPSC, there's not one set of books that you all can read and call yourself to be fully prepared. Hence, you all will have to develop an understanding of the topic that is going on. Like when you talk about the COVID pandemic, you all need to think about this in a holistic perspective, and your answers will be accordingly. But with state services, what I have noticed is these exams tend to be a lot factual. They will ask you when Akbar was born, they will ask you when Akbar died, they'll ask you about some random battle which has nothing to do with the current situation. But what UPSC does is, see, I'll tell you one typical difference. What happens with state services? State services will ask you what was Salt Satyagraha when it comes to Gandhiji, what was Dandi March. They will ask you to define that event, but UPSC is not asking that definition. UPSC will ask you explain the impacts of this Salt Satyagraha of Gandhiji and explain how it led to a movement which resulted in independence of 1947. What did this movement do? So you all will have to understand there's a very huge contrast in the two questions asked. The first question is merely asking you to define what was Salt Satyagraha. But the second question is asking you to analyze the impacts of Salt Satyagraha on the independence movement and finally getting independence in 1947. So this is one core difference when it comes to state and UPSC. With UPSC, the questions are more analytical. And see, one thing with UPSC I always appreciate is sometimes you all might have not read a particular topic. It could be because there's so much information available, you all don't know what to read, what not to read. You all might have missed something. But over the period of time, you all would have developed an understanding which will eventually make you all answer that question also by merely using your common sense. And UPSC is asking only for your common sense and not to be extraordinary or not to be over smart. They want a person very generalistic, using his common sense, understanding the real life problems, and understanding how he would implement all the ideas that he has with the given resources. Because there's an possibility of people complaining that we don't have this, we don't have that, and hence we are not able to do that. Hence, with UPSC, you all need to use your abilities to use the existing resources to do good in your administration. But with state services, that is a little different. They are very factual, they are very oriented, curriculum oriented, where they tend to ask you definitions and other things, which is good and bad at the same time because you all are not challenging yourself when it comes to answering questions. But with UPSC, there's a lot of challenge, and I'm sure that most of us who prepare for this exam over the period of time of 2 years or 3 years tend to understand things better. And if not UPSC civil services, they have the ability to do good in any field and any profession that they are in.
Thank you, Nikhil. You have, absolutely drawn a demarcation line between the two types of examinations that we have in front for whoever among us are IAS aspirants. So now that you're a change maker and all of us here have, been building a background in engineering, how do you think engineering education could be made better? We all have complaints on education in general in India, but specifically for engineering, what do you think can make it a little more better?
Would have read there are a lot many reports which tell you all that most of our engineering graduates are not directly employable. Though this fact is not true for RV College because I have been there, so I know the competence and the ability that the college puts into all of us. But general trend is that most of us are not prepared for the profession that we'll be entering. When it comes to college, we need to start moving away from the things where we consider marks are very important, where we think grades are very important. Because what I have seen generally is people run behind grades, and to run behind grades, they will select a easy optional. They will select an optional or an elective which will give them 100 out of 100, or they tend to choose subjects which are rewarding and not subjects which would be really utilized in their future. With engineering, though our brains are mostly analytical, we tend to deal with a lot of numbers, we tend to bring out solution to problems. That's a very good thing. But apart from that, also we need to build a comprehension ability. We need to build and challenge ourselves with general questions. Because what happens, supposing if I'm in mechanical engineering, I would only talk about refrigerations, I would talk about steam turbines, not an understanding what the global scenario is, not understanding what the global market is seeking from me. If I understand, okay, in this particular domain, there is so much of research being done, I need to focus my potential in that. So you all need to update yourself with the current trend. You all need to, take up challenges, read a lot of research papers. I fondly remember JRN sir, when we were doing our project work, he used to always emphasize the fact that we need to read a lot many research papers. Because what they do is they bring up a ability to think and question each and every fundamental basic that will have. The only time that you will learn is only by questioning. Because if I tell you what are Charles' laws, you all will be able to tell me the definition, you all will be able to define and use it in a better way. But you all will never question yourself, why is it the way it is? So the first thing is question yourselves, read a lot many research papers and understand the idea behind those papers. Try to participate in a number of events. You all might not win, you all might not even come close to winning, but you all would have picked up something new and you all would have built a network that is essential. And basically you all need to focus on general trend, be little more dynamic, keep reading newspapers because that will keep you updated. Try not to be very academic who is just behind scoring grades, because if you all try to do that, you all might be the topper eventually, but when it comes to managing your careers, I'm sure you all will be nowhere close to people who are doing good, because there is a new concept of emotional intelligence. You all need to work on this also, because if you are emotionally strong, if your EQ is higher than the IQ, you all will be able to survive. But imagine a situation where your EQ is very low and you have very high IQ, you all will not be able to balance the emotional dynamics that will come in your life. So try building your emotional quotient so that you all have the survival skills that are required to sustain yourself in this world.
Absolutely, Nikhil. Totally agree on that. So now that after all of these years of preparation, all of these struggles that you have crossed and hurdles that you've passed, today that you are a successful IAS officer, how would you describe your daily schedule? What is it like?
See, firstly, when I got selected into the Indian Administrative Service, I always knew that this job is going to be challenging. Firstly, because there is no fixed schedule. I'll tell you, this morning we had a review by the Honorable Chief Minister of Bihar, Nitish Kumar himself. This meeting started at around 10 o'clock in the morning and it continued around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So there is no one fixed pattern of work. With the COVID pandemic, no one would have predicted this to India or even to the world, and hence planning was very immediate. And apart from that, the general work schedule is I tend to leave for office around 9 o'clock in the morning. I have a number of people to support me who will be working with you in synergy to do things and get things done. Apart from that, you all tend to have a lot of we tend to have a lot of meetings here, and we do a lot of inspection, field visits. We tend to plan. We tend to have a lot many people on board. With the current way the administrations have evolved, we have seen a very different trend. Here, the focus with new administrators is using a lot many innovations into the field of administration. The general administration that we always thought was file, paper, and being within that, it is moved beyond that. With each and every position in the life of an IAS, there are responsibilities. After you become the collector, you're responsible for the entire district. Each and every decision that you make will be impacting life of hundreds of people, even thousands of people for that matter. And each and every small decision, like imagine the COVID pandemic, had we not taken a decision to lock down the entire country, things could have been worse. So these are the things that you all will encounter generally in the life of an IAS. But generally, no one can ever predict what the next day is going to be, and that is what makes this service even more challenging. And with time and again, we have seen IAS officers stand up to these challenges and take the country into the right directions with the help of everyone, our countrymen, be it educationists, doctors, teachers, scientists, everyone has contributed. And IAS gives you an opportunity to collaborate with each one of them, for a better country.
That is great, Nikhil. So, what exactly or specifically are your roles and responsibilities as an IAS officer? What do you generally handle? And how do you think life of a civil servant is much different from that of a person who's working in a private company today? What perks do you enjoy?
Okay. What happens is when you join the civil services, why it is different from corporate India, I'll tell you. Here, see, firstly, you'll have to sacrifice a lot many things. First thing is family, because at the point when you're preparing for your exams, you're already away from your family, if not physically through the distance, but emotionally. Then you'll get into the service. Then you'll are you've been thrown into places which are far flung. Imagine being from Bangalore and imagine being posted in Manipur, in some far flung area of Manipur. That is one challenge that comes across when you're in IAS. Then apart from that, how it is different from corporate India is here you have a lot of recognition. People tend to enjoy this. You get a lot of respect. And working in state like Bihar, I can feel the amount of respect that I get. Not to exaggerate the fact that people here even now tend to worship the collector. They tend to say that the collector is god, and rightly so, because if there is poverty which shouldn't be there in an idealistic society, people tend to worship. It is not a good thing, and I personally don't support it. But people look for hope in an IAS officer. They always feel that an IAS officer is an impartial, neutral being who will always work for them in their benefit. And apart from that, they look up to you for decisions. And IAS will not give you one set of challenges. Like today, when I'm the sub-divisional magistrate, I will be responsible for law and order. When I become the district collector, there'll be a number of line departments like the PWD, the general administration. There'll be there'll be rural development. So these development units come together and converge at the district collectors. So the responsibilities are huge. Once you move away from the post of district collectors, you tend to become secretaries in some department. Like say you are secretary health department, or you are joint secretary health department. You will be responsible for implementing all the health programs for the state throughout all the districts. You all can carry your ideas. So with each and every posting, we get different challenges. And coming to the perks of the services, to be honest, most of the times we cannot enjoy the perks. What happens is we tend to be very busy with service things. You tend to be busy with a lot new things that are coming up our way. We have a number of meetings, field visits, so we are not able to enjoy the perks that are coming with the service. But for sure, the family that you will have will enjoy, will have a good life, or don't need to think of small things like where I'm going to stay, what my family is going to do, where my children will study. These things will naturally come to you because you are in a responsible positions, and you have a lot of power and authority. And here in Bihar specifically, I've seen we have huge houses, like 10 to 12 acre house. You have bodyguards, you have an entire escort vehicle with the collector. When you all move, people tend to clear up the roads for you all. Sometimes it seems very unreal, but that's how the service is in very different states. But same, if you go to Kerala, you will be just like any other person working in a private sector. So the nature of the service will change from state to state. Not to forget that the IAS enjoys huge respect, position, and power in whatever state he.
Okay, the answer you just said was totally a dream come true for a lot of us. Having people open up ways for you and wait for you. I'm sure a lot of us, it's mostly just a dream.
Not, it's not a good thing, and I personally don't support that culture, Babu culture. But with each state, that is how the services evolved, and one person can definitely make a difference. And at my level, I'm trying to do my bit and trying to bring up a little more Kannadiga into Bihar, trying to be what a Kannadiga is supposed to be, and trying to make sure that people from Karnataka are always respected in Bihar.
Yeah, it's really great to see how you from being one of us, you have reached where you are, and you're representing our country, our state as well. So it's really great to know. So right now, I see a lot of audiences are really excited to ask more questions and have the questions answered. I'm sure you'll be excited as well to have their questions answered. So for the audience, we are open to questions now. Please type in your questions in the chat box. So one by one, Nikhil would be answering. We are open for this for maybe up to 5 more minutes. Please make sure that your questions are clear and they're put in the chat message. And please keep yourself mute throughout this. Principal sir, I understand you want to say something. Can.
Yeah. Nikhil, thank you very much. I think you have given a good insight into how you are supposed to conduct yourself, how you have to prepare yourself, and it's not an easy task to be a very responsible person in the country at such an young age. I congratulate on behalf of RV College of Engineering for such a good achievement. And to the students, actually, let me don't take Nikhil wrong, because many times he has highlighted that academics, like a nerd, you don't study, and you have to participate in all the other events. I have a little difference of opinion here, that who is telling this? Nikhil is a third ranker in diploma. I mean, first ranker in diploma, and third ranker in BE. So that means academically also he has performed very well. So don't take him wrong, thinking that okay, if you participate only in it, it's going to happen. I'm sure that he has conveyed that you have to be a part of other activities so that your general knowledge is going to enhance. I think this is a message for the students. And Nikhil, I have got one question for you. That how being an engineer actually you got an edge over the other, because recent times there are more engineers in the IAS and IPS cadre. So how do you feel there is a difference for an engineer when compared with the other general degree or the other professions?
Thank you, sir, for correcting me there, because otherwise students would have taken me in a different sense. And I said that you all don't have to be a nerd. See, one thing with me always was that I am a huge taskmaster. Supposing I have an exam on my head, I would study day in, day out for that. And I would not prepare like for months together, but certainly that week of my exam would be really hard for myself because I would study a lot. So that is when you all have to bring your nerd who's on, and then you'll have to work hard for the exams and try to score marks. Apart from that, sir put a very valid question that more engineers being are there in the Indian administrative service or civil services generally. What happens is when you're an engineer student, we tend to shift a lot. Like semester wise, we have subjects changing. With year wise, we have different level of difficulties with our graduation. So we develop a cognitive ability where we have the ability to adapt to change in a faster way. What happens was, with commerce and other background students, they don't have the ability to change themselves very quickly. They are very monotonous when it comes to things like answer writing, reading something. They would be unnecessarily poetic when it is not required for them to be in answer writing. They would unnecessarily write huge paragraphs, and they would not analyze things that would generally is required from the question. There was a trend in UPSC like in the 1990s where you would require to by heart a few questions and you would answer those questions, and that is the way UPSC would conduct the exams. But with evolving nature of the exams, UPSC wants people who are very analytical in mind. And I feel, sir, like RV College has always given us that opportunity. With each semester, our analysis and our ability to think have improved. Which each event that the college conducts, our ability to think beyond has evolved. And that is where engineering students have that edge. What happens with the engineering folks is that we are ability to change and write the things that are required according to the question. We will never write unnecessary things, and in engineering we have accustomed ourselves to writing answers in point wise, and sometimes this helps us in UPSC, because what UPSC wants you to be very short with your answers, because most of the questions that you will see with UPSC is answer the following question in 250 words. When they say 250 words, and commerce students will try to make it 400 words unnecessarily, even when the question is not for 400 words. But an engineering student, having passed a number of semesters, would limit himself to 250 words and knows how to manage time in a better way. And definitely, the most important factor is during the UPSC interviews. What happens is the board will try to analyze your ability to handle changes. And being an engineering student, most of us will be asked this question. They will ask us generally, though being an engineering student, why do you want to get into civil services? Why do you think that your degree in B will not be wasted when you join civil services? To this, every time my answer was, my ability is not being wasted. Like in engineering, we have learned PERT, CPM, project evaluation techniques. We have learned solid waste management. We have learned a number of things. Like supposing had my elective been biotechnology, had my elective been something relating to microorganism, today I would be in a better position to handle the COVID crisis. So engineering generally gives us a perspective to deal things in a better way and makes us more analytical and more responsive to change. And that is the plus point that all engineers have, and hence we are more into the service now.
That was a really nice answer to the question that sir asked. I can see a lot of us here have put in questions. Nikhil, would you choose questions one after one to answer? Many of us are very excited to hear it from you.
Yeah. I have a question from Akshat. Most diploma students we know do not generally interact with other students and refrain. This is what even I felt when I was in RV college. See, what happens is we know also need to think from the diploma student perspective. What happens? Most of us tend to be from tier 2 cities, tier 1 cities. We are mostly from government colleges. We are mostly from colleges which are not well known. To us, we lack in confidence. And when we come to RV college, we see everyone talking around in English. I was, fortunate in a way because I was from a convent. I did all my education in English. So I would interact better. I would be more confident when I'm talking to others. And that was one reason I got my internship offer with Cisco. So most of the diploma students do not have this confidence. They do not carry a sense of confidence, and they do not want to build it also. They feel they will be put down by someone, they will be made fun by someone, and they tend to remain in that small cocoon that they build for themselves. And I sincerely urge that all diploma students need to interact with the other students in the college and try to enhance your network base. Because what happens if you tend to remain in that small shell of yours, you all will face the damage when it comes to placement, and even otherwise also when it has to go in the general career. So you all need to be a little more interactive with other students. Another question. Mandeep has asked a question about was Bihar Cadre your first choice? I was working in a different state, challenging from home state. Have you tried learning regional Bhojpuri? Mandeep, I assume, are you from Bihar or UP? Because you seem to know the place better. Even if you're not, see what happens is after we clear this exam, we have our choices where we have to fill cadre options. And before we even fill our cadre options, each state government will give the number of vacancies it has to the government of India, and the Department of Personnel and Training will compile these region-wise vacancies. And according to those vacancies, we are allotted our cadres. With our batch, what happened was, you can call it a fortunate and unfortunate event. The Honorable Prime Minister wanted the way the cadre was allotted to be a different way, where he divided the cadres into different zones: north, south, east, and west zone. With this, what happened was, we were randomly put into different zones. Like supposing my friends, most of my batchmates who are from Tamil Nadu are been put in Himachal Pradesh. Someone from Bangalore has been put into Manipur. Someone from Himachal has been again thrown into Tamil Nadu. So that has been part because the government of India has brought up a new policy of zonal system, and hence most of us have benefited or not in this way. And for me, Bihar, I'm personally loving the state. The respect that we've always thought an IS officer would get is here. It gives me a huge scope, canvases, a huge opportunity to work here. There is poverty, and hence I can showcase my skills in a better way. And always I wanted to learn about new culture, and I was very good with Hindi also in my college. So adjusting here has not been an issue for me. I've been doing pretty well, and maybe in future I will learn Bhojpuri and try to teach a bit of Kannada to people here. Yeah, there's a question. Are you all able to? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Nikhil. Please continue.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So there's a question which says that you've mentioned of lakhs of aspirants are hungry to be IAS officers and confidence essential. Can you please? Uh, this is a very funny thing that happened. Okay, when I was preparing for this exam, not many people thought that I would clear this exam. After I rejected my full-time offer with Cisco, most of my batchmates, my friends from RV, told me that you're doing a wrong thing by quitting this, and people like you are better off here in the corporate sector. So I decided I'll not listen to people and I'll move ahead. One other incident that happened to me was in my diploma. Being a fresher just out of my school, I joined my diploma first year. I remember a very senior professor who used to take maths in my diploma college coming up to me and telling that I would not be able to clear diploma. And till today, I don't know why he told me that thing, but I would like to share that when I was uh, given the best student of the year award and I got rank 1 for the state, that he was the same professor who gave me the award. And when he gave me the award, I quietly reminded him, sir, you had told me that I would not be able to clear diploma, and fortunately I have not only cleared diploma, but I have got rank 1 to the state. So that is how you can translate your defeats into confidence. Most of the times people will try to put us down. That happened to me a number of times with my UPSC preparation also. But when your preparation is tough, when y'all are working hard day in day out, when y'all are giving 8 to 10 hours for yourself and for the exams, y'all will certainly at a point know that y'all will be able to clear. That happened because when I was giving my geography optional paper 2, when I was submitting my paper, there I had a sense of satisfaction within me that I will definitely clear my mains. And that same sense of satisfaction came to me when I was in my interview panel, where one of the members of the panel herself told me that tomorrow, if you be in a huge position with the government of India, what will your strategy be with concern to port development? That time, Chabar port of Iran was in news. He was asking me a question regarding that. So when the panel itself addresses you as an IS officer or an senior officer in the government of India, y'all will definitely bring up that confidence, and your confidence also showcases on them. This person is confident and suitable for the right job. Can you compare being a civil servant and a politician? uh, Being a civil servant and politician are two faces of the same coin. You all will have to work in tandem and try to bring about good. A civil servant is usually an executor, and the politician is generally a elected representative. When a elected representative tells you something, it means that the people who have voted for him have are tending to have a general thought in the same way. In most of the cases, politicians can be wrong, not to forget that, but in most of the cases they represent people's aspiration. And being a politician is different because, see, in civil services all that you have to do is clear an exam and then you're an IS officer, and then the different challenges come across. But if you're a politician, you'll have to face people every 5 years. You all will have to get yourself entangled into a number of things. Though it is good, though it is bad, it is each one's individual preference. And being politician is not easy. I feel sometimes it's the most difficult thing to do, because politicians are not treated well by all factions of society. You will be appreciated by people, you will be put down by people, and the same will be with IS officers. But with IS officers, people tend to see us as very responsible and neutral being, and they trust IS officers more than politicians. That is what my general understanding until now has been. There's a question. Which subject did you feel is good choice for optional subject? For me, my subject was geography. Today, when I think back, I think I should have taken a different optional like anthropology or sociology. But why not mechanical engineering? See, what happens is mechanical engineering is vast. Sometimes I might have chosen a global elective or an elective which is very different from what the UPSC wants. And UPSC tends to, take graduation to a very different level. mechanical engineering is not very easy when it comes to UPSC, because at the end of the day I need marks and the availability of resources. Because for mechanical engineering, I always felt that the resources were far and few, and I had to relocate to Hyderabad or to some other place to find those resources. Hence, I decided that I will not go with mechanical because I did not find the required resources for it. Coaching culture apart from graduation. Basically, this coaching culture is a fad. Everyone thinks that if they join coaching, they will be, in a better position to, clear this exam. That is not true. Coaching culture will basically give you this confidence and it will showcase you the competition. But there is nothing in general that I picked up from coaching, because I always believed that hard work and self study was most important, and that is what I always did. I believed that I should work hard, and coaching tends to, sometimes what happens is unnecessary fear and nervousness creeps into you, because they tend to tell you a lot many things which will never be asked in the exam, and you are basing your preparation work based on some other person's line of thought, whoever the teacher could be. Instead of that, you all can do a few trial and error method, and you all can go ahead with it. Hence coaching has not been very potentially very beneficial to me. Yeah, see, in life, you all will have a lot many distractions, especially when it comes to college. In college, what happens? Boys tend to be attracted toward girls. Girls tend to be attracted toward boys. And apart from that, you all have a number of habits. I've been seeing people these days. They go partying a lot. They get themselves into unnecessary activities. So what happens? Your concentration tends to shift, and distractions are very easy, because when you're trying to achieve something, like say UPSC, it requires 8 to 10 hours of studies. Your body is not able to sustain that for long, and a smallest excuse that you give to yourself, or a smallest distraction that you show yourself, your body or your mind is willing to take that. So for concentration, what I used to do is I used to do little bit of yoga at 4:30 in the morning, so that I was better focused. Apart from that, I was away from all the social media, Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter. I did not even log in for 2 years until my results were out. And apart from that, the biggest sacrifice I made was staying away from my family, away from my friends, not knowing where they were, what they were doing, and even they didn't know where I was. So these things, these sacrifices kept me away from all these distractions. Basically, it's all about your emotional, strength, how better you are able to, make use of the time available. What is your goal in life? And if you really want to do something, you will do anything to get it. Yeah, basically here someone has asked me whether you get chance to study as an IS officer. Yeah, surely we get chances to study as an IS officer. See, Government of India has a policy that 7 years into the service, assuming that I've joined the service in 2018, now is 2020. For me, the seniority starts from Jan 1, 2018. Though I joined the service on 26th August, the Government of India considers me as joining from 1/1/2018. So it is pretty much 3 years, 2.5, 3 years into the service. So after another 4 years, I will be given an option where I'll have to, whether I can pursue an higher education. For that, we need to, select the stream, whether it will be beneficial for the Government of India, whether it is going to be beneficial for me from the general perspective of administration. If that is the case, the governments are willing to sponsor us. You all can go ahead with that. Planning the schedule effectively in the less time possible. Here, you all need to be a little smart. What we can do is, y'all can pick up the previous year question papers. These are, an insights into what the UPSC is basically asking. Apart from that, a huge time of yours should be focusing on the newspaper. Basically, for me, it was the Hindu and the Indian Express. Read a lot many editorials, try to make notes of these editorials, and try to focus on subjects which are high yielding, which require less time to study, like environment, polity, geography, rather than going for subjects which will require a lot of time and will not give you marks, like say ancient India. Ancient India, if you sit to study, it will take you good 1 month to complete the entire syllabus, and still you will not be confident with the questions asked. But when you go to see the cost benefit ratio, only 2 or 3 questions are asked in the UPSC prelim. But instead of that, if you do polity is your basic constitution. If you do your constitution good for 1 month, They will ask you some 20 questions, and in worst come situation, you'll be able to answer 10 questions. And if you're really well prepared, you'll be able to answer 15 questions. So every time you're studying something, you'll need to, focus on the cost benefit aspect of this. So here Varun has a question. Varun, important part of GS paper and what does evaluator? Like Varun, I have always focused on the important aspect of an IAS officer being a generalist, trying to understand things in a holistic perspective. So this is what the general studies paper is doing. In a general study paper, if they ask you, explain the impacts of abrupt monsoons or irregular monsoons in India. If you're writing it from a geographical point of view, you all might write about El Nino, La Nina phenomenon, which happens in the Indian Ocean. You all might focus on a lot many technical terms. But when you all do this in a GS paper, when you all focus a lot of technical things in the GS paper, that is when the half battle is lost. Because the evaluator is generally not asking about the El Nino or La Nina phenomenon. He can ask you to make a passing reference, but the chunk of your answer should be around the general evaluation. Say if the monsoons fail in India, there will be food security crisis in India. How will you take care of the food security crisis? If the monsoons are irregular, there will be water scarcity. How you are going to supply the water? If there are irregular monsoons, there will be farmer suicides. So you all will have to evaluate the topic in a generalistic perspective, so that you all are ability to answer this GS paper in an perspective of an administrator and not of an technical expert. Falgun has asked a question about IS officers getting an opportunity. Unfortunately, our batch has not been very lucky with the COVID pandemic. I personally was supposed to go to London, though everything was well set, and we were supposed to leave in the month of June. Now, with the COVID pandemic, the government of India has decided to cancel all these foreign travels for all the central government employees and the central ministers. So this year, I'll not be having to getting an opportunity to go. Maybe in near future, I can get an opportunity. But any other batch which is preparing after this COVID pandemic or once this is over, you all will certainly get an opportunity to go abroad and learn about the governments there. Usually officers tend to go to South Korea, Singapore, and UK. But I have heard that the government of India is in consideration with some academy in Israel, and in near future, IS officers will be able to go there. Yeah, so I have answered the last question.
Thank you so much, everyone, for showing your excitement with the number of questions you've asked, Nikhil. I'm sure we have answered all of them. Also, along with this, we will be sending out a forms asking for your feedback and also letting you guys to answer any more questions that are left. So with this, we'll be ending our 101 Talks webinar session of today. I really thank Nikhil for being here with us today, spending his time. He was really busy. I understand he was really busy, and he took out time to be here with us and to answer all our questions. I'm really thankful to you, Nikhil, for being here. Also, I thank the faculty members, especially our principal and our HOD of IEM, who has who have taken their time out also to be here, and they have shown their support by being here throughout the session and by inspiring us through a very short talk in the start. It was really motivating and inspiring all of us to pursue our dreams. And along with this, kudos to the entire IDEA team that put all of this together. Really happy that this initiation will obviously benefit all of us as we'll be continuing with the series of webinars that will bring on more topics, and more suggestions from you will also be carried on into topics to this webinar. I hope all of you continue to be a part of this and support us. Also, we thank
Nikhil.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Tell me, sir.
Yeah, Nikhil, thank you very much. On behalf of the college, I think we are very proud of you. Hope you'll do a good job in the government and bring good name to yourself and to the college and to the country. And when you're towards this side of Bangalore, I don't know how frequently you travel here. And please inform me in advance so that we'll organize a talk to our students in our auditorium, so that many gets benefit out of this. And once again, I wish you all the best. Thanks for taking your time off on such a uncertain situation which is happening in the country. Hope you are take care of your family well. Stay home you are also working from home. I'm not sure. Maybe you're going for a lot of works.
Yes,
But
sir.
take care of yourself and your family. So thank you very much from the college side once again.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your kind words. And definitely, I would like to come to college and talk to all the aspirants there. Sir, you've been very kind since I've joined college because I had an opportunity to interact with you during my project and otherwise also. You have been very supportive, and I hope that students here and in near future from RV College under your guidance excel in different fields and different walks of life and bring good name not only to their parents, their families, and also to the college and the state in general. Wherever we are, sir, we'll always be proud of the institute that we passed on from. And thank you, sir, for getting us all on board and giving this idea initiative a focus and trying to promote them. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night, sir.
Along with this, putting an end to this session, I thank everyone for being a part of this part of the audience. Very generous. All of you have abided by the rules and unmuted yourself the entire session. Thank you so much, and I hope you guys support us in our endeavor of continuing this series. Please put in your topics, whatever suggestions you have. We will surely incorporate them, and we'll love to have more of such talks and also in-person events as a part of IDEA. I hope you all continue to support us. Thank you so much.